and welcome to another SonicLAB. Today we're looking at the third wave from Groove Synthesis. This is an advanced wavetable synthesis, very much in the mould of the sort of classic PPG era. And yes, look, it's got that kind of blue livery, so you could kind of understand that, you know, that's what they're going for. It was actually... The company was made by a couple of people who used to work for Sequential, and they broke out and designed their own synthesizer, which is obviously very different to what they're doing at Sequential. But it comes from a love of that wavetable synthesis. Before we crack on, just want to say thank you very much to Perfect Circuit for sponsoring this video. They have no say of the content of the review, but you can buy the third wave directly from them as of today. We do want to let you know they sell modular gear, synthesizers, pedals and effects, pro audio and recording gear with a huge selection of standard and harder to find items. And they ship worldwide. In fact, perfectcircuit.com is the place to look if you're into electronic music and need gear, information, inspiration, or just want to geek out. Even if you're not looking to make a purchase, why not check out perfectcircuit.com/signal, where you can find articles on synth history, methods, and the latest releases. What we have here is 3 oscillators of wavetable synthesis, which could do the kind of classic grungy 8-bit style PPG, but also using Waveflow, which is this button here, this really beautiful smooth interpolation. We'll get onto that a little bit later. There's also 2 filters, the first of which is the State Variable filter. This is actually digital, and Groove Synthesis tell me that they're very pleased with the way that it sounds. It goes right up to 24 kilohertz and full stability. The second is a low-pass filter designed by Dave Rossum himself with a dedicated saturation control. There's also, well, there's 4 envelopes: filter envelope, amp envelope, 3 and 4, which we can set the destination, the amount and velocity. There's also 2 effects generators. This is 4-part multi-timbral, let's not forget. 24 voices to go around between those 4 parts. But we've also got 4 sets of stereo outputs. So effectively, we've got up to 4 dedicated synthesizers. And the 2 effects engines are per layer. So we've got a total of 8 potential effects engines. You can layer and split these or just have them running in via MIDI channels if you're doing in the multi-part mode. This larger OLED, very clear display. You can see it's not too tiny, and it does, you know, for eyes as old as mine, I'm not having any trouble seeing what's going on. There's also this thing called the Wave Surfer, which again allows you to scan through the wavetables in a sort of more creative and moving fashion. You can reset that. And we've got this basically a wave envelope which has 6 positions. In this case, it looks like it's just doing a regular triangle, but that actually can affect the waves for multiple oscillators. We've also got a 5-octave, really nice synth action key bed with aftertouch. Not poly aftertouch, but definitely aftertouch. It's nice to see a full 5 octaves, and obviously pitch and mod wheels here. It's a solid metal case. Feels actually pretty nice. I mean, it's a little bit of wibble. I'm not sure I'm 100% could say that they are fantastically solid knobs. Basically, all the knobs without end caps are rotary encoders, so there's a lot of rotary encoders. I think what I should probably do now is play a few of the early presets in these banks, because you'll get to hear that kind of classic PPG sound, which is a real staple of a lot of 80s productions across a wide variety of different genres. Okay, this one is rather aptly called Propaganda Split. I've tweaked it a little bit, but I've got an arpeggiator on this kind of very... and a delay. Not quite sure what the propaganda riff is. I think the only one I know is Duel, and it doesn't sound anything like that, but I'm sure there's an obscure album track that does sound that way. So let's have a look. What else have I got? Here's a kind of very belly kind of sound. Moving through those wavetables. And another one, 2P Wave Super Plus. can imagine that in an 80s ballad, can't you? Here goes another one, which is... Yeah, it's got the glitchy, we haven't got the wave flow on. Sort of early wavetable synthesis type patch. This is just a really nice patch. Not very PPG, and in fact, uses the arpeggiator and these effects to a beautiful... bit off piece there, not very 80s, but hey, I like it. This is a classic wavetable movement. Let's have a look across 3 oscillators. Using it as the wave envelope. But what you can hear there is, not only is there a really weighty low end, but the top end is it can be very bright in a wavetable synthesizer, but it just feels quite tame. And I guess this is the analog filters, but it's got a very sort of wide sonic range. Here's a classic PPG wave choir. Without going too far about it, I don't think these patches really do the synth justice, but because it's sort of based on that technology, I think they've included a bunch of these so that people who are familiar or were familiar with those sounds will be able to kind of recreate them. But this is actually so much more than this. So let's now get into what constitutes a voice. So let's take a look at these oscillators. I'm just going to do a knit program to get us going. Let's bring this up so you can see the display. I'm going to take the pan spread down so it's right in the middle, turn oscillators 1 and 2 right down, and then take this off because this is the multi-stage wave shaping envelope, which I will leave out of it for now. Let's just open all of these up, make sure. So if we go to the wave table, we can see what we've got here. So we can choose from these early waves, which I believe are more of your sort of PPG type waves, and you can hear, if I crank this up a bit, I'll use the saturation just to drive it a bit. You can hear, without the wave flow, you can hear there's no interpolation, so you get... Let's take it down a bit. We get a bit more of that aliasing and the switching. We switch the wave flow on and it's a much smoother experience. We've got a whole bunch. I think there's like 80 odd wavetables in here. If we just go straight up, let's go up to some of the named ones. There's flute harmonics. Interesting. There's some really nice Buchla ones in here as well, so. There we go. So Buchla, these are sort of, I think these are wave folded to a complex oscillator. Again, without the wave offset, we get that interpolation. Then if we go right up to the top, we've got our own wave maker, because we can actually make our own wavetables in here, actually in the instrument. We don't need any external software. We can sample in via the audio input, because there's an audio input, and actually create our own wavetables. We'll have a look at that a little bit later. So coming back from there, we've got all these different noise types, super saw, then we get into the kind of virtual analog, and these aren't really, well, there's no wave button. Then we've got sine wave. If I just bring this up a bit, again, that is just the low end on these just analog waves is really nice. I don't know what they've done. It seems, I think there's some special sauce in the D2As that just kind of, it's all there, and it's kind of noticeably all there. I mean, I do listen to kind of a number of synthesizers on this system, and I'm well aware that this just feels like it's got a lot of doof down there. So triangle, square, does it do pulse width modulation? Yes, it does. So you'll be pleased to know that, though it's so much more than that. And then sawtooth, I think 50% gives us a regular kind of sawtooth sound again. And these virtual analog ones, they're not single cycle waveforms. I think they're actually modelled. So we do get quite a nice range, and we can also dial in things like oscillator drift and whatnot to kind of create a little bit more analog vibe to them. And there are quite a lot of analog sounds in here. So I just want to show you some more stuff about the oscillators. And what I've done is I've just got a single oscillator 1 on a sine. So it's virtual analog. There's some extra miscellaneous parameters in here which are quite useful. Key to waves, not applicable in this particular one. Oscillator sync, which is also useful. But there's a linear FM amount from oscillator 2, so I can bring that up. Which is actually highly useful. And if we bring a bit of, maybe go down to minus an octave, with a bit of fine tune, you get some really nice. And the interesting part is you can actually oscillator 2, if we go to oscillator 1, linear FM from oscillator 2 to oscillator 1. There's also oscillator 3 to oscillator 2 and oscillator 1 to oscillator 3. So if we go to oscillator 3, let's have a look. Actually, oscillator 2. And I can go on in a bit. Oscillator 2. You can get even more movement. It's easy to get lost in this, and some of those parameters are hidden a little bit. But I mean, again, on the size of the display, it's actually not that hard to get to. But that does access some extra stuff, and that not only works on the analog modelled waveforms, but also any of the wavetable waveforms. So, you know, think about the amount of harmonic richness you get from the wavetables, then add that linear FM between all the oscillators and the VA waves, and you're starting to talk, yeah, there's a lot of potential there. Okay, this is probably a good time to talk about the filters. The way they're routed is they're in series. You can't route them any differently, and it comes out of the mixer into the state variable filter, then into the low pass filter. So let's just have a look at the low pass filter, the state variable filter first. I've got a sawtooth. I think there's a little bit of drive differentiation between how much you put in there. Let's just turn that on. Nice, sort of quacky. And that's a low pass. Then obviously we can go through notch to high pass. We can pick out those nice low harmonics. There's also a bandpass mode. But the thing that's nice about these, we can get these really, if we come out, you get that really nice SEM-like kind of phasey quality just by moving the mode. And I believe that is a modulation destination. Let's have a look. Oscillator frequency level, oscillator wave, oscillator FM amount. Let's have a look. Low pass drive, state variable, cut off, state variable mode. Yes, so we can modulate that. Hooray! Easy to forget that this filter is actually digital, and they've done a pretty good job of modelling it, and I know they're very proud of that, so good job. Right, let's take this back to where we want to be, and now we'll take a listen to the low-pass filter. This is actually designed by Dave Rossum. Bit of a genius, and great to have a name like that attached to it. So here is... Oops, take... Bring the saturation up seamlessly. Oh, we've got resonance compensation on this one. Yeah, let's take that. Yep, the bass comes back. So let's just check the filter tracking, because remember there are 24 filters, I suppose, well 48 if they're both discrete, because there's 2 per voice and there are 24 voices. So what I'll just do is what I've got is saturation down, cut off around here, no level coming into here, full resonance. And you can hear there's a little bit of variance with there. So what we'll do is we'll go in and we should calibrate the filter. So I think that's in global settings, calibrate. Let's see. Tune filters, we'll just hit that one. And I'd imagine that's going to take a while. Let's go. So tuning filters 1 of 24. So I'll make a cup of tea and then we'll come back to it and see how the tracking works. So let's get some release up. Let's get the key amount to 64. Let's just try. So this is just full resonance. That's pretty good. I'm triggering subsequent voices. So that's 3 octaves across 24 filters, not bad. Let's just mess around with this a bit. I'm going to stick chorus on and... It's got a lovely tonal quality, bring the pan up. Nice. Oh, there's also a unison. Pressing the unison, we can dial in a certain number of voices, a sine. We can also set the legato. So in this one, just bring that cut off down. Crikey. Monstrous. Okay, let's have a look at, very quickly, the wave envelope, because this is actually quite a big deal. So I'm going to start off, I've got my wave. It's got a decent amount of harmonic content so we can hear what's going on as it's scanning through. Now I switch my wave envelope on and we can see what I've got here is I've set it to be, there are 6 points, and I've set this to look like essentially a triangle. So it'll go up, down, up, down, up, down. So. Okay, pretty straightforward, but if we go to values and miscellaneous, we can set that to loop. Let's put a bit of reverb on. And we'll just go here, we've got the loop start point, loop. We can set these up graphically, or we can do it this way. We can create these shapes complex however we like. And if you listen, it's one per note. So already we can set some really complex stuff. And let's not forget, this is per oscillator. So that's oscillator 1. I could just do that, a different one for oscillator 2, different one for oscillator 3. And then I can set the value, I can copy them. Actually, you can copy to all of them, which might be a better idea. So I'll do that, and I'll copy it to all. So now we have that across all 3 oscillators. No possibility of syncing these loops, which might have been useful against tempo, but nonetheless, that 6-stage complex envelope per oscillator per voice. And speaking of envelopes, we should mention that we've also obviously got the filter envelope and the amplitude envelope, plus these additional auxiliary envelopes 3 and 4. So just set that up. Let's go to, let's just find one of our sawtooth. There are additional, so there's our envelope. We've also got some we can change the shape to be exponential PPG shape, which seem to be sort of longer. We can also repeat them. Which again gives us some other, and this is per voice. We could do the same with 3 and 4 and the amplitude envelope as well. So we could actually have different, let's see if I switch that to repeat, different sort of looping qualities, which kind of works, but we can't set the sync point between them. I think on the DeepMind, actually, you can set the envelope looping to be synced to the master tempo, which is actually quite useful for creating sort of very big, complex, rhythmic stuff. But it doesn't seem like we can do that on here, but we have got a lot more envelopes to play with. Nice patch here called Panoramic Hues. Aftertouch quite nicely, and I have to say the feel of the aftertouch is kind of good on this keyboard. It's nice and gradual. We don't have that kind of switching that we seem to be finding on a lot of keyboards these days. So let's take a look at the mod matrix, and I've got this sort of patch going on here, which is kind of interesting. And mod matrix is here. We've got 16 slots variable and another 12 that are fixed, so 28 total. And what I've done actually, and I didn't realize this, but we can actually use the wave envelope, which is this guy, as a source for each oscillator. So in this instance, I'm just using oscillator, the wave envelope 1, to modulate the low pass cutoff. And that's doing it in this kind of shape. Take the... And that's, again, filter per... envelope per voice. And coming back here, what I'm also doing is I'm modulating LFO1 to the low pass envelope decay, because I'm looping this envelope, and so now this LFO is modulating the decay portion. Possibilities are endless. I mean, the amount of destinations there are on this guy, if I come down to number 3, we can, obviously, all the frequencies, some of the more hidden elements like FM amount, we can modulate. We can modulate oscillator drift, which is a sort of analog ness, so they drift. Then pulse width, then low pass cutoff route. There are so many destinations for this, and this actually means that we can do an awful lot of stuff. And if we're not using any of these, we've got 3 envelopes, plus the filter, plus the amplitude envelope, plus envelopes 3 and 4, plus 4 LFOs to mess around with. Plus we've got note value, we've got a whole bunch of stuff that we can use in the mod matrix. So it's very easy to create some incredibly complex and quite creative modulation routings using the mod matrix. So let's just flip to, this is PPG Factory Patch 33, just to show the wave surfer. So what this actually does is scan through the multiple oscillators by an offset amount, so we can effectively, it's a bit like controlling all of these at the same point, but it's if they're already offset, then this just honours that. So in terms of just maybe finding a specific point in all of the wavetables simultaneously, you can use the wave surfer. Reset at any point to go back to, stick a bit of reverb on that. I'm not convinced of its massive effectiveness. I mean, it's a nice thing to have, but you know, most of those things would be better handled by sort of modulation sources and destinations. I suppose you can just sort of quickly find a point, and then you could, I guess, save a patch, and that might be the sweet spot. So this is more of a keyboard sound, because a lot of the ones I've been playing have been quite ethereal. So let's start with just a... and moving the mod wheel up takes it more into a sort of clav voice. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there because it's a little bit different. Often does come up with synths of a certain era. Does it do jump? I mean, a PPG is probably not very well known for that, but here is, it's called Thick Analog. That's got a really nice stereo width, and that's using the multi-part mode. Okay, let's take a look at that multi-timbral mode in a little bit more detail. So I've got this here. I've got this little patch that I've set up, which has got a nice arpeggio in the top, and this kind of an arpeggiated part at the top, and then this kind of, it's called Sakamoto waves, Ryuichi wave. Let's bring the active part, active part into place. So I could use the wave surfer here. So you can see it felt like it's a bit sluggish when you're selecting the parts. And if we go into the mode, we can obviously set the level, we can set the pan, we can set the splits, and we can add a split, we'll remove a split, and then assign the active parts. But you've got to be a bit careful here, because at the moment, 3 is the active part. And if I say wanted to make 1 the active part, I would imagine I would be doing this. And it is in fact the active part, but because I did it that way, what I've actually done is added that to the active split. So I don't want to do that. The key is, and this is just a little bit of a gotcha, make sure you're on the split, and it will give you the ability to then select which of those parts you would want to edit. Even so, you know, if I say I want to make that the active part, it just feels that it's a little bit laggy. But it's a nice patch, and we can do a lot of We've got 2 effects engines per layer, so we can create some pretty massive things. And also, obviously, we can access those parts via external MIDI, so we can have a sequencer running it, or maybe another keyboard, which maybe we were just using for bass, and then use this for the main chordy parts. Overall, it's actually a pretty nicely implemented and fully implemented multi-timbral mode, something we don't see that often, especially with physical hardware outputs these days, so it's nice to see that coming back into fashion. OK, we've had a little bit of a break. We've been at NAMM. Obviously, my voice has changed because I got NAMM-thrax, but I'm fine. So let's get back onto the effects because they're quite a big part of this. So I've just got a really basic sound. Switch effects unit on 1 in bypass. We got BBD delay. Quite a decent length. Take that down. Then we've got stereo delay. Which is a bit more pristine. Chorus. Get the rate up. Depth up as well. Maybe bring the mix. Actually quite good and wonky, not a massive amount of parameters to play with, but decent. Then we've got a phaser. Let's bring that. We can sync it. We've got the mix. It looks like a fixed waveform on that. Flanger as well. Let's see whether we can get a really. Doesn't go quite jetty, but yeah, still useful. Distortion, Leslie speaker. And if we want to, we can very quickly go, okay, let's just go source, press and hold source, mod wheel, destination, we're gonna go parameter 2, amount that, so that now means, let's see. Yeah, there we go. So we could quite easily I mean, not everybody needs a Leslie, but just also an illustration of how quick and easy it is to map those effects into the effects parameters into a patch. Coming back here, we also have ring mod, which is kind of interesting. And that's it for Effects 1. Effects 2 have similar stuff, but we've also got these reverb types as well. With a kind of high pass, low pass filter going on there. Super play is as far as it goes, then we can get this sort of quite a nice. Okay, the effects are pretty good. I mean, they're not as maybe extreme and out there as some synthesizers, but what I like to see is the fact that they're integrated and we can bring them into the patch design by using the mod matrix. I know some people don't really dig that and prefer to have their stuff outboard, but I, for one, am a big fan of having the effects engines integrated into the patch design. Don't forget, we have actually got 2 effects per layer, so that's essentially 8 effects algorithms, can be external clock synced as well. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, I may not have mentioned this already, I've got this massive patch here, which is... Love that. You can hear there's some sort of, it feels like there is some kind of Feels like there's some kind of compression going on, and in fact you'd be right by thinking that. If we go to miscellaneous, there is actually a compressor across the output which we can turn off or on. So now we've got just a little tip there. If you're finding there's some sort of pumping going on, a lot of these patches have, and in fact the init patch has a compressor across it, which you may or may not want. Just the top tip. Okay, let's take a look at the make waves function. It's got a dedicated button. And going in here, I can arm it, I can record. What I've got here is a microphone, which is going into a mixer over here, and that's going into the line input, which is mono here. You can also drag waveforms into the USB mount, into the audio folder, so you can get them in that way as well if you want to make them in something a bit more special. But what I like about this is the fact that we can do it direct from the front panel. So I'm just going to go arm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's as long as I can get into it. Let's just have a listen to that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that's as much as I got in there. Let's just say assume. So what we can do here is we can make a wavetable now. It will detect the pitch, searching for waveforms. Got the wavetable. Let's save that. We'll save it into, let's say, 48. I'm not going to name it just for the sake of it. Then what we can do is we can go to, once it's done, okay, we'll just go to our wavetable. I'm going to select, let's see, the user. I think it was 48, wasn't it? So now, right, we can hear that that's going on there. What I might do is just do it. Let's go to the wave offset. Look at the wave. That's my wave. 2, 3, 4, 5, 3. So basically, it's really that simple. I mean, okay, it's not the greatest wavetable on earth, but the fact that we can do that from the front panel is actually very powerful. And then, you know, we can just treat that like any other old source. These actually recorded the A to D is at 96K. So it's a good high sample rate. So it means, let's just switch my reverb on. I'm going into, where was I? I was going into 48. I'm using the oscillator wave envelope to play those. You know, and right away, I'm able to create some interesting tonal characteristics. Obviously, as you get a bit more skilled in this, you're going to be able to know what to put in to get the most out of it. But I really like the fact that it's there, it's part of the hardware. You don't need any computer involved to make your own wavetables. Nice touch. So what do I think about the third wave? I have to say, it's one of the most impressive sonic synthesizers I've had for a while. And I know at heart, you know, the oscillators are digital, but the magic that they seem to have created with the VCA and the low-pass filter and the state variable filter, that analog goodness, it sounds massive. It really is something quite impressive. When you hear it in a room, you're just kind of going, good grief, you know, there's an abundance of low end, and the top end with wavetables can be very harsh and unpleasant, but it's sort of smooth and silky. They've done a really great job of voicing this thing, and just the amount of parameters that we've got to play with, plus the fact that we've got multi-timbrality across full parts, is actually really impressive. For a first go, I can't really see that, you know, there's a couple of sort of little bits and pieces. I think the multi-timbrality functionality just needs a bit of a tweak to make it a little more fluid to work. But it's pretty impressive, actually, what they've done with the first synth. I'm sure they're going to be an interesting company to watch. Yeah, I know this is an expensive thing. First instruments often are for companies because they've invested an awful lot of money to R&D. But now this is in here, you know, maybe we'll see this trickle down to some other instruments. But I don't want to take away from the fact that the Third Wave is actually really an impressive machine. It's certainly not a cheap instrument. At around 5,000 US/5,000 UK, it's at the top end of the market. But there is a market for this kind of instrument. I mean, you get a lot of synthesizer for the money. 24 voices, 4-part multi-timbrality, and it sounds really good. Anyway, we'll be posting a few more sound examples on our Patreon, details below, so be sure to check that out. Thank you very much for watching, and thanks to Perfect Circuit for sponsoring this video. See you next time.